Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Alrighty. I swear this time it's showtime. I swear this time people can hear us. We are live. March 14th, year 2021 of our Lord and Savior, Christian Pulisic. He is dying on the proverbial cross at Chelsea for our sins. Only to be resurrected maybe during the summer transfer window. Listeners, we sorry for keeping you waiting. We were streaming to the wrong YouTube live stream for the last 15 minutes, and
well done, Jake.
I'm running a laptop that's recording the show, so I can put this up in podcast form, so it's available tomorrow morning. And I'm like, it's not picking up any wavelengths. About 5 minutes into our recording, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then I noticed that I picked the wrong link basically to stream to. So now we are streaming to the correct link, and we are here. So again, apologize for that. You can follow us on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod, at Steven Jodorand, at JJ Post, at Jake Watroba, and at Justin Sosa 99. He will not be here tonight though. And make sure, again, this is kind of a weird thing. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave a like, or hit that like button as well, and leave a comment. We always appreciate those. So, boys, here we are. Sunday. We took last weekend off, and JJ, I believe this is kind of your favorite time of the year.
Correct. It's March Madness.
Is March the best sports month? If you're going to look at the calendar, is March the best month for sports?
It has an argument, I'd say, in a normal year. But, this year I think it's a little weaker because, the postponement of some of the major leagues, baseball is not coming. Like, usually you get a little inkling in, like, at least you get the start of the season, like March 31st-ish. You don't get that this year. MLS is not coming back till, solidly April, May. So I think in a normal year it has an argument because you got, the spring sports kicking off, as well as, of course, March Madness in full spring. But even without, MLB, MLS coming back, I think March Madness does carry some significant weight. Just the sheer amount of games you get in such a short amount of time. It's a really fun event just because of the obviously the bracketology. Everyone wants to compete. Everyone wants to have their best bracket out there. So there's a lot of rooting interest, even if your team doesn't make the tournament. And it's just a very fun event overall in terms of some people like to go to all the games. Obviously, this year's a little different in that case. But I know people that will travel the country to see their favorite team play if they keep on advancing. And it's just an event unlike any other in college sports. Just the size of it. And I think, it's really quite the spectacle, which is why it's still, even without professional sports, one of the best sporting months, if not perhaps the best, because there are some very good months when there's everything going on and, you just got to sit back and enjoy the fact that everybody's playing.
Okay, off the top of, I'm going to put you both under the gun here. We'll do top three. Top three sports months in the year. You get, 1 through 3. Yeah, there's the top sports months of the year.
How am I supposed to know that?
This is easy. I mean, March is one.
Definitely not July.
No, it's definitely not July. It's like March, October, and then at that point, I think you could say it's February, January, February.
January.
Yeah, January, February.
Dark horse, November. You have Thanksgiving football, which is like, as far as regular season football goes, the best,
Because you love watching the Cowboys lose because you're a Giants fan. You love watching the Cowboys lose on Thanksgiving, and you also hate the Detroit Lions for some weird reason.
If you get the World Series, if it's a long World Series, you get, MLS playoffs. It's probably not a top 3 month, but I feel like for being
underrated.
For being the precursor to Christmas, which is kind of what November is known as, it's got a lot of good sporting events going for it.
Listeners in the chat, let us know what your favorite or top 3, whatever you want to go with, sports months. I mean, Steven, what about it for you? Is it you're not much of a college guy. You don't like college athletics.
No, I'm not. I mean,
so I don't think March is exciting for you.
It used to be January, February because that's when the Patriots would be playing their most important games. But with Cam Newton resign, I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon.
Damn.
The summer months.
Gone cold yet, and you're already ripping them.
What's it say?
I said the body hasn't even gone cold yet, and you're already ripping them still.
No! If Cam Newton's our starter, I'm out.
Well, he is your starter. They didn't give him that contract to then cut him 3 months later.
Well, the money's very cheap though, apparently. So maybe there's that silver lining that the money isn't as bad as people make out to believe. But be that as it may, I do think the summer in June, July, it depends on what sports you genuinely like. Because I think internationally there's some interesting stuff. You got F1. That's kind of a yearly thing, but F1's always good. Tour de France. I'm a big Tour guy. That's 3 weeks of every morning. There's something to be watching.
You're so European.
Not kidding though. I love the Tour de France. I mean, it's fantastic. Obviously, when you got the World Cup or the European Championships, those are all fantastic. But
Gold Cup, come on, big Gold Cup.
Copa America, which I think I don't know why the Confederation. The CONMEBOL and CONCACAF haven't said, let's just make this an annual, every 4-year thing with both regions. I think that would be fantastic. You host it. I don't care where you host it, but it'd be great for U.S. And now, guess what? We generally have a U.S. men's national team worth investing. We have talented players. I don't know if you could have said that 5 years ago, but now is officially, I'm putting it on the map. If you can no longer be a U.S. men's national team bandwagon. You either are on the bandwagon, you're either on the train or you're not, and you better be on the train and can continue on. Because I do not want this nonsense every 3 or 4 years with the U.S. men's national team people just jumping on, because there are players worth investing in and watching. It is unbelievable the amount of talent that has just been spread across Europe in a short couple of years.
Yeah, and before we kind of get into the national team, because we're going to talk a lot of Nats abroad, you two are the Arsenal fans in this podcast. Big day for your Gooners. Was it 2-1?
Yeah,
2-1.
What was the panic level after the Eric Lamela Rabona that where you're like, oh bleep?
No, I didn't have any panic. I thought we were just gonna lose.
Exactly. Yeah,
you're just used to it. You're just used to it at this point. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even phase you. You're just like, oh. Well.
Yeah, whatever. We played. We had 30 minutes of hitting the crossbar, and then we're on the front foot. Then we go behind. Like, okay, good. We played solid for 30 minutes. That's what was expected, and now we can pack our bags and go home.
Then keep sorry, JJ.
No, I mean, like, I was in the downtown. I was in Madison, because my dorm doesn't really have a communal TV where I can watch the game. So I went to downtown Madison, tavern or wherever to watch the game. There's a guy in a Spurs jersey next to me. He said, "Hey, what do you think the score's gonna be?" I'm like, 3-0 Spurs. I mean, at this point, I expect nothing from this team, and that way, if anything happens, I'm happy.
And they benched Aubameyang today too. And they benched Aubameyang today.
No Aubameyang. The team's in crisis, and look at that. We pull out our biggest result so far of the month. So
Cancer.
This team makes no sense, and we should stop expecting it to.
Not only North London Derby was the big one today, also Super Classico, also today, and the Clásico Nacional. Any interest in either of those from you two?
I'm not gonna lie, I did not watch much soccer this weekend.
Wow. How do you expect us to do?
How do you
expect us to do a soccer-centric podcast / YouTube show right now? And then say, I didn't watch anything today, so whatever. So, all right, so Steven's going to be riding by the seat of his pants for the rest of this show. That's great to know. Anyway, listeners.
Jake, I'm going to be honest with you. F1 starting. Aren't you excited?
That's what, 2 weeks from now?
Well, you had... they had their preseason running the last 3 days. Lots of interest. I think it's going to be a much more interesting season.
I don't care.
Mercedes seems to be struggling a little bit.
I don't care. I mean,
you're going to be watching.
I'll watch it, and then when I quickly realize it's Hamilton, Bottas finishing 1-2, and then it's Max Verstappen and whoever else trying to finish third, and like, okay. It lost me really quick. All I'm going to say is Red Bull till I die. That's all.
Okay. Well,
that's my team. That's my.
Before we get to today's episode, which we're talking about Nats Broads, the Olympic qualifying team, and some MLS betting odds, I do want to say League continues to be probably very intriguing. You got PSG right now in the Champions League, who look a favorite. Like they could win it. Wouldn't surprise me if they win. They're second in the league. They just dropped points.
Yeah.
Lille's in first. Lyon's tied with PSG for second. Like, maybe they don't win the league, but if they win the Champions League, isn't it a successful season for PSG?
Oh yeah, 100%. It has to be. I mean, it's Ligue 1. Who cares? No one cares. No one.
Just
I
wait
mean,
till-
and you've dominated that league. It's like
just wait until
it's like Steven,
just
you
wait till
don't
Messi
sell
goes
as a Patriots fan. We'll take it back to the Pats. You don't celebrate AFC East championships. You don't care.
No.
You're
Oh,
like,
no.
oh, we won the AFC East. Like, yeah, you're supposed to. You play against the Jets and the Dolphins and the Bills every year. Like, what the hell? Like,
we're about to have the strongest division with the best quarterbacks.
and yeah,
And
that's true.
then Sam Darnold.
And Sam Darnold, yeah, but yeah, how dare you?
Well, no. We're gonna have Deshaun Watson's in Miami. You got
or he's in
Buffalo.
New York, and then it's Tua in Miami.
Russell Wilson's gonna be in New York.
Unsubscribe.
I mean, like I look at that from like a Patriots perspective, or a team that dominates like a division. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, you won Ligue 1. Who cares? When you play the big boys in Europe, this is we keep it clean here. You bleep the bed.
I do think it'd be a pretty entertaining kind of reversal of the common PSG narrative that, like, oh well, they walk Ligue 1, but once they get to the Champions League, they can't hack it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a pretty interesting kind of change of events if they were to win the Champions League, but end up finishing second to Lille in the Ligue 1. You lose out on your domestic, to use the common parlance, Farmers League, and then you go up against the best of the best and win that. It would make no sense, but it would be very interesting to see, to say the least.
Yeah, I think what I want to see is them not win Ligue 1, because I don't know. This is my issue. This is my issue with European soccer right now. It's this, and this is what is making Serie A great, is that at least this year, it's the same damn teams that win it every single year, and it gets boring after a while. It's like, I saw people like, Juventus won't get to do the whatever the hell, they won't get their 10th win. They won't get to dominate the decade or whatever this. I saw someone basically write that. I'm like, oh no, Juventus didn't win the 10th title in a row or whatever the hell it was. Like,
I think that was Celtic.
Was it Celtic?
That was going for 10 in a row.
Maybe it was Celtic.
Scotland, yeah.
Oh yeah, because the Rangers won. Maybe that's who I'm confusing.
Unfortunate.
With. And it's like, and who cares about the Scottish Premiership? It's worse than MLS. Outside of, maybe you can make an argument that Celtic's maybe better than most MLS teams, or I guess.
I will give it to the Scottish Premier League. The fact that it's a proxy war for religion does give it a bit more kick than a lot of leagues.
Yeah, that's
but
what makes
in terms of actual quality, it's just no.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan.
You're not a big Motherview guy, whatever the hell they're called, or
I'm a Celtic fan because I'm a Catholic, and I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, as an Irish Catholic, I feel like it's my responsibility to root for Celtic. But like, I don't actually, unless it's the Old Firm, I'm not actually going to watch a Celtic game.
But Jake, you do raise an interesting point, and maybe for some people this is the big appeal of MLS, but I think MLS just lacks the qualities. Like, you have the quote unquote unexpectedness of MLS, especially with the playoffs. But I'm sorry, this year European football, apart from the Bundesliga and the Premier League, the two leagues that have dominated TV viewership in my eyes, Liga, Serie A, and La Liga, are all must watch at the moment. You have Lille, PSG, and Lyon fighting it out in France. Serie A, for the moment, Inter's kind of walking away with it, but still, I think it's fascinating to see Ibrahimovic with AC Milan, Juventus struggle with Ronaldo after being kicked out of the Champions League. In La Liga, you got Athletic at the top, but Real Madrid and Barcelona are slowly inching their way closer, where it becomes a three-horse race. European soccer, I think, hopefully there is a little bit more of spread the wealth type deal with some of these winners of these leagues, and it makes it a little bit more interesting. I think the Premier League right now is kind of boring to watch.
The bottom of the Premier League table is more interesting to watch than the top. I mean, outside of you trying to figure out if it's going to be Everton, West Ham, or Chelsea to get that final Champions League spot. I mean, outside of that, there's really no reason to watch the Premier League. I mean,
I agree.
The City match yesterday against Fulham, I guess, was probably worth watching because Fulham has been. I think they've had a good run of form recently, and they're battling. They're trying to get out of that relegation zone spot. They're 18th in the table, but yeah, there's no reason to watch any of those leagues over there unless there's Americans playing. And Christian Pulisic's not playing, and we all don't like Anthony Robinson on this podcast, so. I don't know what other reason you'd have to watch the Premier League right now. I think that's a good time to talk about Christian Pulisic, huh?
Yes.
Take it away there, Steven.
Yeah, well, question of the day. Christian Pulisic's current run of form with Chelsea. Before we get to the question of the day, how would you describe Christian Pulisic's run of form with Chelsea Football Club at the moment?
It's non-existent because he doesn't play, except for today or Saturday he started. But before then, it doesn't. He doesn't play. I mean, look. Since Tuchel has taken over, he's managed 1,080 minutes at Chelsea. Christian Pulisic has played in just 275 of those minutes. That's 25%. So how can you say he's in a bad run of form or a good run of form when it's like he's played a quarter of the time that Tuchel has been at the helm? I mean, like, I don't know. Look, I mean, JJ, like, what about you? What do you think?
Honestly, the big takeaway here was the way Tuchel defended it. He's like, yeah, well, I know how good Christian is in a super sub role. I did use him at Dortmund, so it's been on. That is it's just objectively funny the way that is somehow more disrespectful than if he had said like, oh yeah, no, he needs to be better unless he really steps up in training. We're not gonna play him. Don't say he's a good super sub in Dortmund, so you want to use him in that role because what is he playing 5 minutes a game? He's usually making those like 10-minute cameos at the end. Like it's clear that. Unless something changes, which it could, it has, in players' careers, it has in Pulisic's careers, it's clear that Pulisic is going to struggle to get minutes. And the question then becomes, does Pulisic adapt as a player and, maybe find himself more in that inside forward role that Werner's kind of been occupying and beat out Werner for that role? Or does he perhaps push himself back, become a wing back? We have been looking for a left back. Maybe Pulisic's the answer. And then the other option, of course, becomes, does he leave? Personally, I don't think this is, I think there's alarms going off, but I don't think this is you have to hit the emergency exit. He's got to leave. He's got to get out. I don't want to be that reactionary yet because, sometimes it takes a while for a player to reestablish himself. Sometimes it takes a while for a player to reinvent himself. It's been 10-ish games under Tuchel. It's not time to be shoving him out the door. But if the right offer comes, and I hope it does because, I do think, I'd objectively rather have Pulisic be on a team that values him for who he is. If that offer does come, I don't think if you're Christian, you're declining it either. I don't think you need to stay at Chelsea. The question becomes, is there a team that's going to be willing to pay that price? Because it's probably going to be a premium given that Chelsea paid a lot of money for him and they're not really a selling club. You're probably going to have to pay either equal value or, close to it. So unless that team comes along, I think he's got to stay at Chelsea. And I think the question then becomes, does he reinvent himself as a player or does he get way better at what he's doing at right now?
Yeah, I mean, Pulisic, 1 assist in 8 games under Thomas Tuchel, 1 start. It's what I find interesting is Christian Pulisic doesn't really have much leverage in the situation, right? Now Chelsea could put him out on loan, and then there's probably some more leverage. Pulisic might be given more of a direction of where he wants to go. According to the Daily Mail, Liverpool, United, and Bayern Munich are all keeping an eye on Pulisic. And I think those would be interesting and intriguing clubs. But with Liverpool and Man United and Bayern Munich, these are all world-class clubs. Does he also get lost in the same situation if a manager, leaves?
There's an interesting situation with the Bayern Munich link because I did see a rumor today. I think it was Nicholas Mendola with NBC Sports who mentioned that there is a possibility of Kingsley Coman going to Chelsea. And I don't know how these swaps would work. Is it a trade? Is that how this works? We'll give you Pulisic, we'll take Coman.
Yeah, I mean,
and then whatever the money needs to be worked out there.
I feel like they wouldn't call it a trade, but in effect, it's the same thing.
Did United do that with Alexis Sanchez and Mkhitaryan or something like that?
Yeah. It was like a
straight up trade.
Ironically, it was an everyone loses deal, because you think about trades like, wow, both teams really got something out of it that, helped them. I'm trying to think of a good example. I'll probably have to go to American sports, but you look at the Stephon Diggs Vikings Bills trade last year. The Vikings got a lot younger. They got a really young star in that position with Justin Jefferson. The Bills got the win now player they needed with Stephon Diggs. Both Jefferson and Diggs had really good seasons, and the Bills and Vikings both have better options than they did when they had each individual player. The opposite of that would be the Mkhitaryan and Sanchez swap, where Arsenal needed to get Sanchez off the books. He wanted to go to United, and United said, well, we don't want to pay you, so here, have our backup winger. And Sanchez was terrible. Mkhitaryan was fine for, a solid, month stretch. But then, kind of the next season came around and it was pretty clear that he is, he had deteriorated, or he was just, showing some bad form in the first half of the season. And he just kind of disappeared in terms of relevance in that squad. So, in the end of the day, both teams kind of got the player they wanted, but not the, the performance they wanted.
It's interesting that Alexis Sanchez intro video for Man United is still one of the all-time greats, where he's playing on the piano. The glory, glory, Man United. Still one of my favorites.
I completely forgot that he had played for Manchester United.
And on top of that, they both also kind of refound their form in Serie A.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally think Christian Pulisic should go to Serie A. You got Weston McKennie, who's, again, the best U.S. men's national team player in form right now. Why not go down there? It seems like Serie A is waving the red, white, and blue. Why not go make some dough? And, think about it. The 90s, Serie A was at the top, and a lot of Americans looked, Alexi Lalas was a big name for U.S. soccer in going to Serie A, which was known at the top of club football.
Yeah, and for me, it's hard to envision now. On this weekend, he started at wingback. Okay, it's why is he playing at wingback? And on the right, I believe he was starting on the right-hand side, too. He wasn't even on the left-hand side. So
Tuchel's such a talented coach that he's trying to solve the American fullback issues while not coaching the American national team.
Yeah.
Hey,
we appreciate that.
Some people are playing checkers, others are playing 4D chess.
That's Thomas Tuchel.
Underwater backgammon.
I think Serie A would make a lot of sense, whether it's AC Milan or Inter Milan or even Juventus. Who's to say that Ronaldo doesn't leave Juventus after this season? I don't think he does, but who's to say he doesn't leave for I don't know
Jake.
What. Yes.
CP goes to Real Madrid. I've said that for 2 years now. Hazard's on his way, gets dropped. Bring in Christian Pulisic. See if you can get him for cheap. I mean, here's the question, right? Christian Pulisic, if you were a club, do you try to shortchange Chelsea and say, here's 55 million, and you take him off his books and try to see if you could get him to produce? I mean, you're going to make a lot of money selling kits, especially if he goes to Barcelona, Real Madrid, maybe Juventus. I just don't know if he stays in the Premier League. Great, he's still going to attract big dough, but I don't think he does well in the Premier League. I think it's a stylistic thing of the league that doesn't suit Christian Pulisic's game, because I think he's going to get worn down way too quickly. Because he's an explosive player in the Premier League is just so physical.
If he can't do it in the Premier League, how is he supposed to do it in CONCACAF, Steven?
Oh, because CONCACAF is a cakewalk.
That's like
there's a difference.
Subtle jab at Bruce Arena, by the way.
There is a difference. I think the argument actually is valid. The idea that Pulisic's style of play is concerning, to say the least, given the what he's going to face in CONCACAF. It's a very physical league. The rough and tumble of the the SEC. The South Conference is not Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, but Honduras, Guatemala, and Trinidad and Tobago. He's going to take hits, and for a player
what game?
Pulisic,
sorry to interrupt, JJ, but what game was it that he got knocked around so much? Was it the Costa Rica game?
But I remember Costa Rica was the one where we lost, and that happened.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just trying to rewrite history, but I remember he was visibly frustrated by the physicality, how he was just getting knocked around constantly. Yeah.
I mean, I would be too. I mean, to be fair, what was he, 17, 18 the last time the World Cup was around? So, there is some level of, you're a teenager. You should be a senior in high school scoring 200 goals in the Pennsylvania Class A youth circuit. Instead, you're trying to carry your national team almost single-handedly to a World Cup. But, at some point, if you're a Christian Pulisic, you're coming from the top level of European soccer, when he was at Dortmund at the time, to getting your ass kicked by, Guatemala or, Trinidad and Tobago. And it's working. They put out a strategy. Costa Rica was the most, I think, effectual example, where they said, well, he's a kid, and we think we can man-mark him out of the game. We can enforce ourselves on him, and he's not going to make that big of a difference. And that's exactly what happened. And I think, there's a certain amount of concern that's going to come with that because he's a player that is probably, given his injury history so far, given the way he plays, going to put himself at risk of injury. Just, in the way that, and it's a good trait, but the way he goes at every ball, full speed ahead, the way he goes up for every header, no matter where he is on the field, it's got to put you in concern for, is he going to extend something? Is he going to tweak something? That's not something you want to have compounded by, 200-pound guy or men running around trying to clatter him every time he gets in the ball. So I think there's a difference between, the top-level professionals who have, are in the Premier League with Burnley doing it and, guys who are just coming out to show up for Trinidad and Tobago who, in their current state, really are just not at the top level, doing it. But I think the prototype, the blanket concern that a player with injury histories could get targeted by rough hits, I think that's pretty valid.
So here's my thing on this. When you're the guy, I mean, man, we love the cross sport references here on the show. Let's do hockey now. We haven't done hockey yet, so we'll do hockey. All right, Steven, yeah, we'll do Steven here because I actually don't know JJ's favorite hockey team. I'm pretty sure it's the Devils, but I'm pretty sure I can't name anybody in the Devils because Martin Brodeur retired like 5 or 6 years ago, and I don't think Corey Schneider's the goaltender anymore. Hersher, I don't know. He was the first number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. Anyway, I don't know anyone on the Devils. I apologize. So is Taylor Hall still a Devil?
No.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah, because everyone hates Taylor Hall.
We have E-Boy Gretzky, Jack Hughes. That's our new hero.
Everybody hates Taylor Hall. Anyway, we'll use Boston. We'll use the Bruins here. Let's imagine
the Buffalo Sabre. No, Taylor Hall's he's a Buffalo Sabre.
We're sticking to soccer here. Come on. All right, let me do this stupid reference here so I can make
come on.
So it goes full
no one's here for hockey.
Let's just say the Boston Bruins. I know they're the best team in hockey right now, or one of the best teams in hockey.
No, they're
right
not.
Now. But okay,
they're not.
Whatever.
But
they play.
Be that as it may.
Let's just say they have like one really good player. Let's say it's Travis Pastrnak, I believe is the guy.
Pastrnak.
Whatever the hell his name is. You get into the playoffs and you get in a 7-game series and the opposing team just keys on guys like that. They run them into the boards, they rough them up every chance they get. I feel like when you're a team of the U.S. men's national team stature, where Christian Pulisic is your best player, the best player you're going to face, yeah, you're going to kick him in the ass. You're going to bully him around a little bit. Now, he's not the best player in Chelsea. I think there's an argument to be made that maybe he was the best player in Chelsea when the last season restarted. Obviously, he carried them to the Champions League. I think there's a very good argument to be made there. I think, question of the day, I don't know if we've even thrown this out there, is there any reason for concern with Pulisic's lack of playing time since Tuchel has taken over Chelsea? For me, and listeners let us know at Unksam Soccer Pod, for me, I'm not concerned because I think when you see reports on the Daily Mail that link him to Liverpool, Man United, Bayern Munich, there's obvious interest there. Those are top clubs. This isn't like, Southampton's interested in taking Pulisic on loan, and that's his best option.
But the question is, of course, there's interest in them. There's interest, yes, but is the interest in the players because they can get a good value and there's a good potential return on ROI, return on investment with Christian Pulisic, or is it because he's genuinely a good player? And
I think he showed last summer he's genuinely a good player. I think there was an argument to be made last summer. He was clearly the best player on Chelsea. He literally pulled them into the Champions League. I mean, they weren't that. If I remember correctly at the restart, I don't think they were a top 4 club. And granted, I think was it Leicester and Sheffield United kind of fell off the face of the earth after the restart.
Yeah, Leicester got screwed.
Yeah, and Sheffield United definitely got screwed. I mean, they've been in free fall since the restart as they fired their manager this weekend. But I think he's got the talent to be a world-class player. I just think it just isn't working out for him at Chelsea. And we have a comment here from Soccer Basher 10. He wants Pulisic to go back to Germany because he knows the league. I wouldn't hate that, whether that's Dortmund, which I don't think it would be Dortmund. I don't think Dortmund would take him back. But I think Bayern Munich, I think he would get playing time consistently at Bayern Munich. Now, and then we have the JJ stance, which is he's not going anywhere because they're not going to get screwed out of however many millions of dollars they're going to flush down the toilet with the transfer.
That's the thing with what JJ's saying is I think is completely correct. Why would Chelsea? That's why Chelsea has the. This is why Christian Pulisic really has no leverage. He cannot. He's stuck with the contract. Great, he's making all this money, but if you're a U.S. men's national team fan, you want him to play regardless of whatever club he is. He needs consistent playing time. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, he's stuck on this contract, so Chelsea doesn't need to get rid of him yet. He can keep him on. They can keep him off the bench or whatever they want with Tuchel. Christian Pulisic cannot sit there and try to get him to another club. I mean, yeah, maybe he can eventually get upset by it, but he's what, 20? He's a young player. Do you really think it's going to warrant him well long term for him to be upset by this? And other clubs look at him going like, "Oh, you're just going to cry, baby? Why don't you just work hard?"
I don't think he's cried at all. Actually, during he's been
no, he's not. But if he were to put up that fight, it's going to not be perceived well by other clubs.
It wouldn't unless he put his, actually backed it up with if someone took a risk on him, and it's like, oh, Pulisic he had a gripe to be pissed.
The best to be. We're gonna move on here.
Yeah,
I know, Jake,
we want to talk a couple other Nats abroad here before we
but
keep beating this dead horse.
Yeah, we're beating this dead horse. But he should just go on loan. Stay at Chelsea. I don't care. Just go on loan for a year. Go reform. Go find your form again. Go find yourself playing soccer or whatever he needs to do. Because I think this is not good for his mental. Being such a young player, mentally, I think this hurts him.
We got some live breaking news here. This really doesn't relate to anything. It kind of relates, and we're not going to be able to provide any breakdown on this, but we're going to just say it because it kind of ties into what we're talking about. Nats abroad right now. San Antonio, this is coming from Paul Tenorio of The Athletic. San Antonio FC's Jose Gallegos, I hope I'm saying that right, 19, is headed to Germany for a 2-week training stint / assessment with Bayern Munich ahead of a potential transfer per a source. Gallegos was a finalist for the 2020 USL Young Player of the Year. So there you have it.
There you go. Breaking news on Uncle Sam's Soccer
Can't
Pod.
stop.
I like it.
All we do is get talent to Germany. That was JJ who sent this text to us and said, "Hey, we got breaking news." So.
I do have a brief comment on this. Me and Justin have been on the podcast on record about being the local proponents of college soccer. Well, we found a new level. We made the joke about Daryl Dike, Virginia. Imagine being the poli-sci major at UNC that has to go face Daryl Dike on a Thursday night after your lecture. Jose Gallegos is a high school soccer alumni. This guy was in the Texas public high school circuit less than a couple years ago and is about to move to Bayern Munich, a team that won the Champions League last year. And, we talk about, well, what if our best athletes played, college soccer? What happened to Daryl Dike? What happened if we put the U.S. national team players in the high school level? Because this kid was out playing San Antonio Central High ahead of tearing up the USL last year and now potentially heading off to Germany. I just think the rise from that level of just playing high school ball to going out and facing potentially the world's best in training if this move goes through, it's got to be wild to make that jump in just a few years.
Yeah, Justin, it's Keenan Parks is also alum of the Texas high school soccer, so good for Texas high school soccer. But isn't this what we want though? Like, yes, we want the MLS Academy, but we want our high school players making this leap. Yes, college players obviously as well, but we want them at 16, 17, 18 making those moves, not 19, 20, and 21. The earlier, the better. So this is good news for U.S. men's national team soccer. We should be applauding this type of move, players taking that risk, because now everyone knows him, and he's always got a fallback here with MLS.
Certainly. I think he's got a great story, too. You look at, I think hopefully this will be a blueprint for some of these USL clubs. Clearly a very talented player at the high school level, doesn't go to an MLS club, gets assigned with a USL team, San Antonio SC or FC, San Antonio whatever, and really lights it up with them. They not a player that they saw coming out of college that they wanted to take a flyer on, not an MLS guy that they wanted to bring down. Came out of high school and he immediately succeeded. He was a crucial player for them as they had a pretty good season, and now they're probably going to get a tidy fee off him as Germany comes calling.
Hell yeah, and yeah, I'm just excited for the U.S. men's national team, Jake. I don't know. We've got a boatload of players here we want to talk about. Chris Richards, Josh Sargent, Timothy Weah, Weston McKennie, Brian Reynolds, and Roma, who had a disaster.
Let's lightning round this a little bit here, because I kind of want to touch on a little bit of Olympic qualifying too with JJ to kind of give his assessment of the roster there. So we'll do a lightning round here. Chris Richards, future center back pairing with John Brooks. I would assume he has to be, right? That's the tandem here for 2022 and maybe 2026.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not.
Or would Brooks be a little too old for 2026?
I mean, I think it's center back's position you can have experience at.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what's he, 32? I think around then. Like, I mean, obviously it's player dependent, but I don't think you could like necessarily factor him out of the picture at that time.
Chris Richards also this past week basically stated, "quote We want to win the World Cup right in 2026." So
I don't think that's unreasonable, by the way, either.
No, I don't think that's unreasonable, but it means they're internally talking about it amongst the players. And the question is are they going to get ahead of themselves? I don't know if they will or not, but it's good. I think this is a good sign. They understand the drive of this federation, and not that they're going to fully comprehend the disaster of the 2018 qualifying, but I mean, Christian Pulisic was part of it. This could be a great story for the federation. Not that they have to go on and win it, but it's good. It's good news that you have these young players playing in Germany regularly. And Chris Richards a couple years ago was again in Dallas, and he was a nobody and in a short few years now. Here he is leading, could be the potential starting center back for the next generation of U.S. men's national team.
He could be the starting center back at Bayern Munich next year, depending upon how well this Hoffenheim loan spell goes here. Next, we have a trio of strikers: Josh Sargent, Werder Bremen, Daryl Dike, Barnsley, and Jordan. I can't say his last name. Can you, Steven? You're French. You know French. You're not French. You're Swiss. Is it
Sebachu?
Sebachu? Is that how you say it? We're going to go with that.
Yeah,
Sebachu.
Young boys.
Listeners in the comments, let us know. Give me the phonetics on that one. At Young
Jordan
Boys.
S.
Jordan, is Jordan S present? All right, so Sargent, 3 goals in 3 games before Sunday's loss to Bayern. DK has 3 goals in 9 appearances for Barnsley, starting consistently. And Sabachu has 9 goals, 2 assists in the Swiss Super League. Scored 3 of Young Boys' 6 goals against Leverkusen in the Europa League. And I think you can probably throw, I don't know, is Timothy Weah in the striker conversation too, or I mean, could you throw him in that role?
You could use him there, so I think it's probably worth bringing. Like he's probably if the U.S. men's actually messed the lineup right now, he's probably in the winger role. But
he's probably right winger, right?
You could use him as a striker, so I think it's fair to put him there.
So let's say we have a World Cup qualifier tomorrow. Who's your starting strikers? I would assume it's between Sargent and DK, right?
DK. I don't know.
I have a bad take on this.
Is it Jossie Zardes? Yeah, I think we actually had that conversation a few shows ago.
But no, I will take this opportunity to kind of put a shout out to Josh Sargent and Chris Richards while we're at it. I've been agnostic on both Sargent and Richards for some time, kind of thinking that they're good, but also the product of a American youth hype machine that just wanted to see players be really good and kind of not to inflate their abilities, but kind of made their performances better than they were. And I'm really happy that both of them in the last month or so have really, Richards has really turned a corner. I think has gone from a player that's not just at the top level, but is also performing at the top level. He's no longer just, he's at Bayern, so he has to start. Now he's starting because he's a player that is, in the top flight of Germany and looks like he belongs. So, and I'd much rather have a player that looks like a very good starter for a solid Bundesliga team than a player that should be starting just because he's on the Bayern Munich roster and doesn't play. Same applies to Sargent.
I think Sargent had more of the hype than Chris Richards. I don't know. Maybe just because Chris Richards came from the FC Dallas product, and I think there is a certification or some sort of reliability out of the FC Dallas factory that you can say, okay, yeah, you can trust it. They're not going to always hit, but you can trust it more so. I think Sargent was a little bit more unknown, but I think it's good. Again, it's positive news. Yeah, I want DK just because I like the player. Personally, I just like him. Why not? I think it'd be a great story.
Keep in
Sargent,
mind,
on the other hand, he's young. I just don't know. I mean, Sardes would be good. Like I said, I said this on the pod, I think 2 weeks ago when we had former host Armand on, I think, or was it even 3 weeks ago when we were with Justin, where I think we're starting to see where MLS players on the national team are going to fizzle out. Yeah, maybe you'll get the youngsters, the youngest, the fill outs of the roster might be MLS based, but I think I think the starting 11 will all be based in Europe, apart from the goalkeeping spot.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sargent, I think part of his hype was he got his proper debut at a much younger, I don't know how old he was, but I was a junior in high school when he first started scoring for Bremen. And I think a lot of people, or no one really realized that it was kind of because Bremen is a god-awful team up front that, they were just throwing an 18-year-old or however he was up there and he was doing well. And I think he's kind of, it hasn't been his own fault that it's cooled off since then, but, it's kind of quickly become realized that, the attack is pretty tepid, and as a result, so has his performance been. And, if he can keep up his goal record, I don't really, I don't, hate Bremen. I think they play their style of football. Good for them. They've managed to stay up in the last few years. Good for them. But the fact that he's able to score now is just, another, a validation of the hype he was getting 3 years ago. And I'm very happy for him because I think it was kind of starting to swing back on the, you get the hype and then he's not scoring for 3 years consistently. It's kind of swing back to, well, he's not good. No, he's the same player he was 3 years ago. It's just kind of he's become stale in the sense that he's still out there. He's just no longer a fresh, new, young face in Bundesliga. He's now a guy that's been there for 3 years and still hasn't really broken out fully yet.
Justin and I had this conversation probably a couple months ago on how we think that Josh Sargent's career trajectory may have benefited him going to a lesser league like the Netherlands or something like that, to where he can play in a league where he can score some goals and kind of figure out how to finish, because I don't think Werder Bremen is going to do a good job of kind of cultivating that talent for him. If I were to kind of circle back on who's starting, if you had to put a gun to my head, I'm probably picking Sargent as of today. However, we saw the report earlier this week with DK. There was a $10 million transfer put in, a request to Orlando City to buy him from one of the top 6 clubs in the Premier League for next season. I think that if he continues to score goals at Barnsley, I am of the opinion that if he keeps scoring goals at Barnsley, he's going to sell for more than Almiron sold for when he went to Newcastle. And at that point, I think then you're looking at your future number 9. But I think right now it's Sargent. But if DK keeps up this run of form at Barnsley and he gets moved to, say, Manchester City or Liverpool or Tottenham or wherever, and he's scoring goals like crazy, it's hard. It's kind of hard to say it's Sargent or Zardes at that point. So that's kind of where I stand at this. We saw one last player here. We saw a big. I'm using air quotes for those who can see me. A big debut today from Brian Reynolds at Roma, and it was a disaster. I think I turned on that game. I saw my Twitter feed kind of light up like, oh, Reynolds is being subbed on, and I'm like, all right, I'll watch this game on ESPN Plus for the last 20 minutes or however long, 25 minutes or whatever. And man, I could not have been more unimpressed with the performance I saw. I don't know, JJ, if you watched him play at all when he got subbed on, but I saw a player that just stood there, that didn't know what the hell to do, just kind of nonchalantly jogged here and there. He made one good run where he made that, it's like that we have it the defender or whatever on the flank there, and you pass it kind of towards like the top of the box there, and then you make that quick run in behind to get that like little give and go there when you're making that run in behind the defender. They did that. The pass got intercepted by the defender and kicked out of bounds. It was such a bad performance. I don't know how he's going. Like, how you get your debut?
It's one game.
Yes, but let's be real though. I don't know how you look at that. You're playing Parma, who was at the time was supposed to be
game in 17 games.
Yeah, they're gonna be relegated. And you're playing Parma, and you're down 2-0, and then you're like, all right, let's put this kid out there that we just got from Dallas, and that was the performance he turns in. Like, I don't know. Is he going to be part of the? Is he even going to be named to the match day squad next week? I thought it was a bad. I thought it was bad. And
yeah, it was a bad performance, but it's one.
It's one, but it's your debut.
Does he learn from it? Does he improve? That's the question we should be asking. If he does not improve, or if this is consistent, then Roma. I think Roma is going to sit there and go, "We just did what?" He might, but then again, does he play enough? Again, it's the consistency. It's so hard for, I think, players to get thrown out there for 30 minutes when they don't have. Yeah, they train every day, but it's a lot different when the minutes start to matter and every second counts, and your club's future, depending on where they play in the Champions League, promotion, relegation, etc., is dependent on it. You don't have that same pressure in training.
Yeah, I have two takes in this. The first one is kind of the more optimistic one, where, I agree with Jake's assessment, having watched, the tape. I didn't watch it live, but I went back and watched it because it's only like 30 minutes. I thought he looked kind of lackadaisical. I thought he, looked not just like the hustle wasn't there, but it also looked like he just didn't really know what he was supposed. Like, it wasn't just a lag, like he was running around like a chicken with his head cloth. It just looked like he didn't really know what to do. Full stop. So the optimistic take on that I have would be, well, it's his first game. Maybe the manager, isn't really clear. Maybe he's, something will need to be worked out, and they'll figure it out. He'll learn the tactics, he'll learn the setup, and he'll fit in nicely. The more pessimistic, worst case scenario I have in my head is Roma bought him, not that they didn't think he's a good player, but with the impetus on, being able to make a profit off of him. My kind of backdoor concern with the influx of Americans is, teams used to get Americans for nothing out of the academies. That is gone, thankfully. But now you can kind of go to a 2.0 of that, where you get, and Reynolds didn't go for pennies either. He went for a good fee. But, they thought, well, $9 million for a 19-year-old who's very, very good. We buy him. He, performs. And then, in 3 years, either we sell him to an MLS club for a good fee, we sell him elsewhere in Europe for a good fee. And I hope this isn't what happened, and I don't think it's what happened. But kind of the backdoor concern I have is their teams are going to start stashing American players, younger ones in particular, knowing that the market value on these guys, with the hype around them, with the the dollars to be gotten in shirt sales and all that, will pay them off no matter how good they are, on the field. Because Reynolds could be terrible for 2 years at Roma, and guys like me will tune in every week because there's a young American playing one of the best clubs in the world. So. And I'm not going to deny it, that, because I do it, the money is out there to make back your investment on these players just by what they bring to you in marketing. So my concern is that they're going to use players like Reynolds as, Reynolds is obviously a talented player. I don't think Roma thinks he's bad, but is the priority on marketing, or is the priority on how does Reynolds fit into this team? And I'm hoping it's just the case the first, where he needs to get better instructions and, he'll sort it out.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. I think JJ, you're right. I think this isn't this. I wonder how many clubs in Europe do you think, American money? Like, how many of them think of the marketing dollars more so than the football? I mean, there's got to be several. Not that.
I mean, if you're the big ones, you definitely have a brand impetus, even if it's not like TV dollars. Like, just to be able to get your logo on Americans, get your logo on a jersey and some, if you're walking around. Walking around in a Roma jersey on the train station, maybe it's not exactly, going to directly give Roma money, but, that's however many people is like, hey, it's a pretty cool jersey. Let me check this team out. And, maybe they become a fan. So, and I think you see that with all the ways these teams are investing into, youth clubs, for example, and all these other, ways of kind of getting their name out there. And even if it's not directly impacted, I think there's probably a lot of particularly big clubs, because if you're a small club, you're not wasting your money on trying to get Americans to notice you. You're spending your money trying to, save up or trying to get better in the, your team wise. But if you're a team that like Roma, who, is going to challenge for the title, is, financially secure, you can afford to, buy a player with the knowledge, perhaps taking precedent that he's going to grow your brand. And, hopefully this isn't Reynolds' case, but I also don't think there is no marketing precedent to have concern that they would have bought that with that knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm overreacting to a bad performance, but I just wasn't impressed. I'm just gonna say it. All right. We wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit more extensively, but we're kind of getting geared towards the end of the show here with our time constraints. Next episode tease. Let's we'll touch on this here for 5 minutes, and then we'll touch on the last half for the other 5 minutes here. The under 23 roster was announced for the Olympic qualifiers coming up this week. First match, U.S. versus Costa Rica, Thursday, March 18th at 8:30 Eastern. That's on FS1. There'll be another match next Sunday. Actually, I'm not sure how we're going to make that work next Sunday during our live stream. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
we can watch it.
Maybe we'll watch it. Maybe we can stream afterwards. We'll see.
Yeah.
Kind of an on-air production meeting there, listeners. Dominican Republic versus the U.S. Sunday, March 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. And then to wrap up the qualifying schedule, Mexico versus the U.S. Wednesday, March 24th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Now, JJ, you pay closer attention to this stuff than Steven and I do, so you're going to be able to do us more justice on this. And since this was kind of a segment made for you and Justin, and we can maybe expand on this more when we have games to talk about starting next week. Biggest surprises, inclusions, exclusions on this roster?
Yeah, so there were some interesting decisions to be made in this roster, and I think it was not some decisions that were made without some degree of commentary by the all-knowing American Twitter hive mind. Kind of the big. I'll start with the surprises in the left outs. The big kind of question I had, and a big question a lot of people had, was who's going to be creating from the midfield. The midfield, the defensive stability in the midfield, the steel in midfield, I'd say is pretty strong. Andres Pereira, good player, very, technically sound, also can win the ball. He's a very good player. Jackson Ewell can distribute from at the base of the midfield. Johnny Cardoso is kind of a 8, but he also probably is a deeper 8 than he would be, a forward-minded player. And the players left out of the roster, Caden Clark was left off the initial one. Tanner Tessman, Eric Williamson both come to mind as other players of particular note that I probably would have included on the roster, ahead of Caden and also ahead of the rest of the guys. The guys, Caden, Tanner, and Eric, the guys that get left off, are all more creative players. They're guys that can drive the ball forward, the guys that can break lines, guys with a little more attacking mind. And you kind of got to wonder what the system that they're, because if we want to, the conventional wisdom here has been the U23 team will probably be a model of a proxy of the national team, the full national team. They'll play similar styles. But it's hard to look at the midfield group that Jason Kreis has called and see the two kind of all-purpose but also attack-minded 8s that you kind of have seen in Greg Berhalter's system. Because Jordi Mihailovic can play there, even though he's probably more of a wide creator than anything. But he's one of the two 8s. And then at the second 8, it's kind of a question mark. Do you have Jesus Ferreira drop back deep? You saw inklings of him as a 10 when he made his full national team with Trinidad and Tobago. You saw inklings that he could play deeper, but, if he's going to play Berhalter's system, that would require him to be a full-time 8, which we definitely have not seen of him. So I think, based on this initial roster, that we're going to see them play a different style than we've seen from Berhalter's team so far. The question just becomes, what is that style, and are we going to see similar, quirks in which, like, for example, Ferreira drops back and plays deeper in certain situations as a forward, or are we just going to see an entirely different team outright with new roles, new positions, new schemes? The one interesting call-up that they did include, which I thought was kind of curious, was they did the fullbacks look strong, I think. That's my first observation. The first positive one is Aaron Herrera, Julian Araujo, and Sam Vines is about as good as you're going to get for American fullback depth. These are 3 players that have proven themselves at the MLS level. So, obviously not the best in Europe, but, they're getting professional minutes. And they're 3 players who have looked good in the case of Aaron Herrera and Sam Vines in national team official full call-ups. So I think that's a strong point. But in terms of, players that I'm interested to see that did get the call-up, it's got to be guys like, Ben in the forward spot, guys like Benji Michel and Sebastian Soto, both of who, for different reasons, are pretty unproven at the national team level. Michel is, a rookie from Orlando who kind of got lost in the Daryl Dike hype because he was the second forward behind Dike. Dike became the breakout star, but Michel quietly put together, by any other metric, a very good rookie season. And I'm kind of interested to see how he does, because I was happy that he got rewarded with this call-up. And then Soto is just hard to judge because he hasn't really done anything at the pro level. He's limited professional minutes. He's in Europe, which is obviously a great sign, but limited professional minutes in Europe. He hasn't done anything of note for the national team other than be a very good player with the U20 team a few years back. So I think behind Ferreira and Lewis, who appear to be the presumed forward mainstays, given that they've both done so for the big national team, I think Michel and Soto, should they get minutes, are going to be players that I really want to see what they make of it, because you haven't really seen what they've what they can do at the national team level so far.
There you have it. And listeners, we will talk more about the Olympic the Olympic qualifying as matches get underway later this week. Like I said, Thursday against Costa Rica, 6:30 Eastern, FS1, and then later that next weekend against Dominican Republic, Sunday the 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern, also on FS1. We will definitely be chatting about that, or at least those two matches, and we can get more into depth about the game and the players and how everything broke out for the U.S. Now, lastly here, before we wrap up here, a couple quick minutes here. We have the MLS betting odds for the 2021 MLS season via BetMGM. LAFC are the favorites to win MLS Cup at plus 500. Seattle Sounders are 2 at plus 800, and your defending MLS Cup champions, Columbus Crew SC, are plus 900. Now, guys, let's quickly here. Seattle loses Morris, likely for the season with the blown ACL. Philadelphia Union, who are tied for 5th, their odds are plus 1,200. They lost McKenzie and Aronson over the winter to European clubs. Are we surprised to see them both ranked as high as they are, or have top 5 betting odds to win MLS Cup?
No.
That's it? No?
No, because well, here's the thing: is what other club would you replace them with?
I mean, I don't know. Sporting Kansas City,
Yeah.
Orlando City. Maybe?
I don't know. Sporting Kansas. What has Sporting Kansas City done the last couple of years that has said, yeah, they're on their up?
They're just one of those teams that's like always surprised. Like you never look at the roster and think this is a team that's going to compete. But every year they're a team that's greater. And I think this is a very fine business model that Nashville FC kind of built off of. And they're a team that's greater than the sum of their parts. You don't see. And I kind of doubt that they'll ever actually, make it to that top of the top MLS Cup level. But every year they're probably going to contend just because Verms knows how to make his team work as a unit. They're greater than the sum of their parts, and they compete. But, I kind of subscribe to the theory that if you don't have at least one player that's above the or is in the elite tier of MLS talent, he doesn't need to be like Josef Martinez is like one of the best players, if not the best player in the league by some distance. You don't need to have that.
Better than Vela,
unless you have at least one player that's in the elite tier somewhere, I think you're going to struggle to really, win the MLS Cup because you kind of need to have a difference maker. It's a tired term, but it also I don't think is entirely wrong and that they're very important. The one team, if we can kind of talk about a different tangent of betting odds that I thought was way too high, was NYCFC. They've had a pretty nonchalant offseason after a pretty bad regular season. Like, I'm just kind of confused because they didn't light it up last year. They didn't really make any big moves this year. General sentiment I've seen around the fan base is they're discontented with how it's been, but I believe they're 4th in terms of odds to win the MLS Cup. I mean, even if you think they're going to rebound and have a better year than last year, I wouldn't put them in that like immediate tier of qualification for the Cup.
We have a comment here on YouTube. Raymond Orozco chiming in here saying, come on, everybody knows it's the LA Galaxy's year. Yeah, is this the... yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe for best jersey.
Maybe best jersey. I don't know.
That.
They might be. I'm going to say something kind of controversial. No, I'm not going to make a prediction on LA Galaxy. I wouldn't be shocked if they were one of the worst teams in the West this year. I'm just going to throw that out there.
We're talking. Speaking of odds, as we wrap the show, JJ, who's winning March Madness? You got.
You skipped the MLS Cup thing here. Best value bet. Listeners can't see it.
I'm sorry.
Listeners can't see it. So JJ, you can see it. I mean, let's say you get $100,000 or whatever. You're in Vegas. Who are you putting your money on?
I'd say my best value bet was Portland not because I think they're necessarily the favorites to win the MLS Cup, but I do think I think they were like a middle of the pack team in the rankings. I don't have the exact number because it's on a different tab. But for a middle of the pack team, I think Portland's a team that has a reputation of, being able to put together cup runs. They have, Diego Valeri, who's obviously a top-tier player. And, I just think they're a team that, if you want to make a safe bet for a team that's going to be a good team in MLS and, a team that could give you upside, they've made the cup before, they've won the cup before. I think Portland's a very fair pick for, a profit bet. You put a little money down and it gives you good returns in the future.
I got one.
I know, because I think you and I have the same one, actually.
Oh, no. No, we don't.
Yeah, you do.
Unlikely, Jake. It's unlikely we have the same one.
It's very likely with the same one right now. I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
Okay. All right, no, we can go on 3. Let's see if we're. If,
All right,
if we really...
3. We'll say the same. We'll say the same time. All right.
Okay.
All right. Wait.
3?
Is it on 1? Like 1, 2, 3.
3, and then blah blah blah.
Okay.
1,
2,
3.
New
Orlando
England
City.
Revolution. Wow.
Ooh.
Orlando City, because of Oscar Pereira. He's been there. He's done that. The team was good last season. They got into the playoffs, right? They're playing. The fans are going to be invested in the team now. Florida is going to allow fans, so they should pick up a lot of points at home. We'll see what their away form is. I think it's a good bet. I think it's a good money value right there with Orlando City.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think the South is just going to be a good, like, in terms of a region. Inter Miami's probably going to suck because, I just think I kind of want them to because I think it's hilarious that that experiment has gone totally, downhill.
Sideways.
In general, I think Orlando is going to be very good. I don't know what they're going to do with the DK situation because realistically, if you're going to have that many teams knocking, you're not going to be able to keep them. But I think, even if they don't have DK, I think they're fine at forward. They're going to find other options. And I think...
Pato, we'll see what Pato can do.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to take a step forward, and be a good team and maybe make it a little farther this year. I think Atlanta's going to have I don't know if they're going to go all the way back to, full throttle, just dominate all the way to the Cup. I hope they don't as a Red Bulls fan. But I do think they're going to be a big change. Like last year they were bad, and I think this year they're going to be good. Maybe they're not going to win the Cup, but they're gonna be a very good playoff team again, I think. And
Nashville
Nashville
JJ,
is the third team.
Right now, Nashville is going to be an interesting to follow. The fans probably have a little more expectation based on what they just did, but is it fair? No fans. COVID, did they just get hot at the right time and just kind of went through the playoffs and then they were,
I think what I like about Nashville is I think the approach they took to building their team is not a conventional one, and it's also one of the best ones. They didn't try to, LAFC was and Atlanta United are the good examples of, when you're a marquee market, you're going to splash the cash, you're going to bring in a good top quality players, and they're going to produce. But then Inter Miami kind of shows what happens when you try to flash the cash, and it does not turn out right. Nashville said, well, you know what? We're Nashville. We're not going to be able to get players to come to LA or Miami it's a pitch that the Galaxy or LAFC uses. But what we can do is, bring in a core of guys that are going to be able to give us 90 minutes for every game this year, or maybe not every game, but 90 minutes for most games this year. Guys who are going to, produce game in, game out, guys that know the league, guys that are going to gel well together. And I think it really paid off. They brought in guys like Alex Mule, who they utilized trades, I think, a lot. So they worked within the system where Atlanta United tried to break the system and succeeded, where they just, brought in 3 DPs. They wanted a 4th DP because they were that good. And, they won the Cup. But Nashville said, okay, well, MLS is a weird league. We have fake money. We have, trades. And, well, here, Red Bulls want $300,000 of our fake money for one of your players that's underappreciated. Sure. And Alex Mule turned out to be a starter on that team that, went in, game out. I don't think he scored any goals. He maybe had 1. But, he did what they wanted him to do, which is press the hell out of the other teams, win the ball back, and be in general, a hell to play against, which is what he's best at. And it's a role he thrived in. And it's players like that who just have specific roles and they make the team better as a whole, even if they themselves aren't excelling, that Nashville really stockpiled on. And I think Nashville is rewarded handsomely for with a breakout year.
And listeners, here, as we wrap up, just so everybody knows, Steven picked Orlando City at plus 1,800. JJ picked Portland at plus 2,000, and I'm taking New England Revolution at plus 2,500. So when the Revs win this year, I will be filthy rich.
Henry Kessler stand
in hypothetical money.
Well, the funny thing is Uncle Sam's Soccer Pod provides you great in-depth hockey analysis, NFL analysis, soccer analysis, and now betting analysis. So we are really stepping up our game here.
I'm up $14 this week on the conference tournament, so I'm clearly an expert in this field.
We're going to change the name of this podcast to Uncle Sam's Daily Wager.
Can we have a can't lose parlay every week for MLS games?
Yeah, we'll steal that one from Pardon My Take. I can't lose parlay, which we'll always
lock
lose.
It in.
Lock it in.
Revolution to cover against Nashville FC.
Yep. All right, listeners, that's it for today's show. JJ, quickly, who's winning the NCAA tournament? And who you got?
Okay, this is a pretty bad take because I usually do my first bracket run. It's a speed run where I just go gut instinct, no analytics, no actual tape, and my gut instinct says Baylor. I think they're a team that kind of lost their hype at just the right time to be good for the tournament because they lost in the conference tournament in the semifinal. But I also think, this is a team that was the best team in the country for most of the year. I don't think Gonzaga has the juice because the team that looks perfect is never perfect. So I think Baylor's that nice little, they got hot at just the right time, and if they do, they're going to be dangerous.
There it is.
Wolverines.
Jay Billis of Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast.
It's going to be Michigan.
Dickie V. I don't even know any other college basketball. I'll be Gus Johnson. I'll just start yelling at stuff, and then
that's a great role to play.
Gus Johnson, wasn't he famous for in the six?
Yep, Gus Johnson. You can yell, or you can. Who's the?
You got barbecue with that?
Bill Raftery. Is he the one who yells onions?
Bill Raftery. There's a lot of good. I was watching Bill Walton last night, and it just I don't know what his pregame routine is, but it looks like he was high on his mind in the broadcast.
His pregame routine's marijuana. Maybe that should be ours.
Animal noises on the broadcast. It's terrible analysis, but it's hilarious to watch.
It's a trip, no pun intended. All right, that's it for today's show. You can follow the show on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod, at Steven Jodder, at JJ Post, at Justin Sosa. 99 listeners, question of the day, send them in. Any reason for concern with the lack of playing time Christian Pulisic has received since Thomas Tuchel has taken over Chelsea? Let us know on YouTube or on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever. Leave us a comment, leave us a liking, all that good stuff. For JJ and Steven, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.